I never walked away from my marriage. Truth is, my husband had lost me long before I ever admitted it to myself. For 16 years, I wore the label of Michael's wife, like it was stitched into my skin. To everyone else, it looked like we had the life people dreamed of. I owned a small but thriving veterinary clinic. We had a gorgeous 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood, 2 shiny cars in the driveway, and our daughter, Lily, who had just turned 14. To the outside world, it was the picture of stability. And for a long time, I believed it too. But somewhere around our 10th year together, I started to feel a shift I didn't want to name. A restlessness crawled inside me, whispering that something was missing. Instead of confronting it, I pushed it down and pretended it wasn't there. I was too wrapped up in myself, too blind to notice the storm brewing beneath the surface of my own choices. Michael worked as an aerospace engineer, which meant he was gone a lot, traveling for projects, meetings, deadlines. Even when he was home, his nature was steady, calm, almost unshakable. He was the kind of man you could depend on. But instead of cherishing those qualities, I twisted them into something ugly. I told myself, steady meant boring, that reliable meant passionless. Looking back now, I can admit how selfish and childish that thinking was. And then came Adam. 2 years ago, he slipped into my Instagram messages out of nowhere. He wasn't like Michael. He had fire in his eyes, spoke like he was always chasing some dream just out of reach. Adam was a freelance architect, bouncing between coffee shops with his sketchbooks, talking about visions and possibilities instead of schedules and contracts. Compared to Michael's quiet discipline, Adam felt like chaos wrapped in charm. And I was hooked. His attention, his energy, it was intoxicating. Within 6 months, I'd crossed the line I swore I'd never cross. At first, I thought I could keep it contained, like a secret compartment of my life. I only saw him when Michael was out of town. I deleted every text, every photo, careful like a criminal covering tracks. I lived a double life, pretending to be the loyal wife at home while stealing hours with Adam in the shadows. The longer the affair lasted, the less careful I became. At first, every meeting with Adam felt like a high-stakes secret, something I had to hide. But soon, secrecy didn't thrill me anymore, it felt unnecessary. Deep down, a part of me actually wanted Michael to find out. I wanted that explosion, that storm, the fight that would prove he still cared enough to battle for me. But when the day finally came and I admitted I was leaving him for another man, there was no eruption, no pleading, no anger. Michael didn't raise his voice or even ask me for an explanation. He just gave this quiet nod, calm and collected, and said the words that cut me more deeply than any outburst ever could. I understand. My lawyer will send the paperwork. That was it. 16 years of marriage reduced to 2 sentences. No tears. No rage. Not even the faintest hint of sorrow I could recognize. I told myself I had broken him beyond repair. That same night, I laughed about it with Adam. We sat in his loft apartment, drinking cheap red wine, and I mocked the man who had once been my rock. I called Michael pathetic, said he was like a beaten dog too weak to defend what was his. Adam laughed with me, and in that moment, I felt powerful. I thought I had finally won. Michael moved out just days later. He didn't fight over the house, didn't argue over the cars, didn't even touch the joint accounts. He left everything in my hands as if it meant nothing to him anymore. I convinced myself it was because I had shattered him, because he was too broken to fight. And when Lily adjusted faster than I expected, I used that as proof that I was right. Adam swooped into her life with effortless charm, road trips to the beach, sketching lessons at the kitchen table, late-night movie marathons with popcorn piled high with candy and caramel. Lily started calling him her fairy tale dad, the fun, adventurous man out of a storybook, while Michael had always been the one insisting on bedtimes and chores. Every time I heard her say those words, I felt validated, like even my daughter saw that I had chosen the better man. The divorce came quicker and smoother than I ever imagined. My attorney warned me more than once that something felt off, that no husband simply hands everything over without a fight. But I shut her down. Michael gave me the house I assumed I deserved, the cars, and even full access to our shared accounts. For transitional support, as he put it. He didn't demand custody. He didn't even ask for a schedule with Lily. He just said he trusted me to do what was best for her. I told myself his guilt over years of travel and long hours made him generous. I told myself I had beaten the system and come out on top. I had the house, the money, the freedom, and the new man. I thought I'd taken everything. But God, how blind I was. How unbelievably foolish. 1 year later, the cracks I ignored had split into canyons, and I finally understood the truth. I hadn't won at all. I had been played. I had been outmaneuvered from the very beginning. Remember how I bragged that Michael gave me the house? That victory crumbled the day I opened a letter from a law firm. The beautiful home I believed was mine was never ours to begin with. It belonged to the Reeves Family Trust, set up by Michael's grandmother 5 years earlier. My name had never been on that deed. And in that instant, the illusion of control I'd clung to for so long shattered into dust. Michael had always been the sole trustee and beneficiary. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. The house had never been community property. It had never been mine to claim, not even partially. The notice from the law firm was blunt, clinical, merciless. As of the finalized divorce, you are no longer a resident beneficiary. You have 60 days to vacate the property. I remember the way the paper trembled in my hands as I read those words again and again, trying to convince myself I'd misunderstood. My attorney confirmed the worst when I rushed into her office in a frenzy. She flipped through the divorce settlement, tapping her pen on the very section I had signed without a second thought. There it was in black ink. Clear, unambiguous. I had waived any rights to property classified under the Reeves Family Trust. And I had signed my name like a fool, grinning to myself about my victory. I had been so obsessed with humiliating Michael, so blinded by what I thought was freedom, that I hadn't even bothered to read carefully. The irony was unbearable. But the part that nearly made me collapse was what my attorney found next. 13 months earlier, right around the time Adam and I had first started our secret meetings, Michael had quietly shifted the deed into the trust. 13 months. He had known. He had known all along. While I was sneaking out, deleting texts, and rolling in the thrill of my rebellion, he was already securing every piece of the board for the checkmate he knew would come. When I broke the news to Adam that we had 60 days to find a new place, he didn't comfort me. He didn't wrap me in his arms and promise we'd figure it out together. Instead, he exploded. You told me the house was yours after the divorce. You swore you cleaned him out. I gave up my lease for this, my entire setup for you. He shouted, pacing the apartment with his hands tearing at his hair. I tried to explain, but he wasn't listening. He wasn't even looking at me. His eyes weren't filled with passion anymore, but something colder, calculations. For the first time, I saw the numbers running behind those eyes, tallying my value, weighing who I actually was against the fantasy version he'd built in his head. It was the first time I realized Adam hadn't chosen me because he loved me. He had chosen me because he thought I came with a package deal, the house, the money, the life Michael had built. And then came the cars. First, a call from BMW. Then another from Tesla. Both vehicles were leased under Michael's company, Reeves Aerospace Consulting, LLC. I had always just assumed they were ours. But the truth was brutal. Since you are not and have never been an officer of the business, your leases are void. The vehicles must be returned within 72 hours. My throat went dry. Within 3 days, both cars were gone from the driveway, leaving nothing but tire tracks on the concrete where I once thought I stood victorious. Adam grew even more distant after that. His late-night client meetings stretched until 2 or 3 in the morning. He came home smelling like cheap whiskey, snapping at me for trivial things, slamming doors, and muttering curses under his breath. One night, Lily, my sweet, perceptive daughter, looked at me with her wide, questioning eyes. Why is Adam always angry now? She asked softly. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. What could I say? That the man she called her fairy tale dad had only been playing a part? That the storybook was already crumbling into ash? The silence between us was heavier than words. For months later, I wasn't just standing on shaky ground, it had all collapsed beneath me. Everything was gone. No, not gone. Taken. Torn away piece by piece. But in truth, the cruelest part wasn't that I'd lost it all. It was that I realized I had thrown it away. Michael hadn't stolen from me. He hadn't destroyed me out of spite. He had simply ensured I couldn't discard what never truly belonged to me in the first place. And then came the blow that broke me. My veterinary clinic, my pride, my independence, the business I had always told myself I'd built with my own two hands, turned out not to be fully mine either. 8 years ago, when I'd been too busy with motherhood to balance the clinic's books, Michael had quietly infused it with capital from his grandmother's inheritance. He had secured a 65% stake. I held only 35%. And buried in the operating agreement, beneath the fine print I had skimmed but never studied, was a clause. The majority owner may freeze distributions if the minority partner acts in a manner deemed harmful to the company's interests. My affair. My neglect. My absences. All of it qualified. And Michael had proof. Every hotel receipt during business hours. Every time I'd left early, every emergency appointment I'd claimed, every email I had carelessly sent from my office computer to Adam, all catalogued, dated, and preserved. I wasn't fired, no. Michael wasn't cruel enough to strip me of the one thing that still resembled stability. But the profits, the real money, were locked away. I was left with nothing but my basic salary, barely enough to cover the rent of the modest apartment Adam and I scrambled to lease after losing the house. And Adam, oh Adam. My wild, artistic Adam. The man who made me feel alive. The man I thought was my escape. Turns out passion doesn't keep the lights on. His architecture career was nothing more than glorified doodling for firms that tossed him token checks. No steady clients. No projects. Nothing real in 2 years. He'd been surviving on credit cards, half-paid freelance gigs, and loans from his aging mother. He had fooled me as much as I had fooled myself. And then came the night that stripped away even that illusion. Adam was drunk, his words slurred, his bitterness spilling like poison across the floor of our tiny apartment. "You really thought I was gonna save you?" he sneered, his eyes glassy with anger. "Michael gave you everything, and you threw it away. I can't believe I left my life for this, for you. You're not worth half of what I thought." The words landed like daggers. For the first time in years, I felt the truth echo through my bones. I wasn't a heroine chasing love. I wasn't a brave woman seeking freedom. I was a fool. A selfish fool who had been outmaneuvered at every turn. And now, stripped of everything, even Adam's adoration, I was finally beginning to understand just how thoroughly Michael had won. "You were supposed to be my ticket out." Adam spat, words slurring and sour on his breath. "The successful vet with the big divorce payout. Now you're just another broke woman dragging baggage behind her." He slept on the couch that night. In the morning he brewed coffee, stared at the floor, and mumbled an apology I could have recited for him. I did not mean it. We both knew he had. The final blow did not come from him anyway. It came from my daughter. Lily found the old messages by accident, synced threads on my iPad I had forgotten even existed. Not the recent ones. The buried ones. The ones from years back when Michael was overseas on a defense contract, and I was sending half-dressed photos to Adam like a teenager who had not learned a lick of wisdom. She stood in the doorway holding the tablet with both hands like it was hot. Her face was not red with rage. It was pale with something worse, disgust. "Dad was out working to pay for my school while you were..." She could not finish. Her mouth closed. Her eyes did not cry. They just hardened. "Lily, I reached for her, but she stepped back like I had burned her. I am going to Brooks, she said flat, like a court sentence. Do not call me tonight. She left with a duffel bag, and I heard the zipper teeth clatter like chains. For 2 weeks she stayed there, sleeping on a trundle in Brooks' guest room. She would not answer my texts. Are you safe? I love you. Please call me. The read receipts glowed back at me like tiny blue lights on a heart monitor after the heartbeat has stopped. A few days into that silence, I ran into Michael at the grocery store, the first time I had seen him up close in months. He was at the butcher counter, talking steaks with the guy who used to set aside the good cuts for us on Fridays. He had a bottle of real wine in the cart, not the cheap stuff we used to buy on sale. He looked 10 years younger somehow, jaw clean, shoulders square, wearing a fitted button-down I had never seen. No dad gut. Nose slump. He looked free. He saw me and gave a polite nod. Not warmth, not hatred, just the way you acknowledge an old neighbor you do not really know anymore. That single inch of distance hurt more than any shouting match could have. How's Lily? He asked, voice steady, eyes steady. She's staying with a friend, I said, and hated how small I sounded. He frowned. Strange. She told me she was with you. Of course she had told him something kinder than the truth. Even now, my daughter was protecting me from my own mess. I will call her tonight, he added, more to himself than to me, and rolled away without looking back. 6 months later, Adam was gone. No long speech. No big scene. I came home from a 12-hour shift at the clinic, 3 emergencies, one that did not make it, and found the apartment half empty. His guitars were gone. The framed sketches he loved to scatter across the walls were gone. His cologne was gone. On the counter, a sticky note leaned against the salt shaker. This is not what I signed up for. Good luck. 8 words to sum up 2 years of soulmates, and meant to be. I stared at that note until the letters drifted. I took it down, set it flat, smoothed the crease like it might change the message if I pressed hard enough. Then I opened the closet and found a small banker's box he had somehow forgotten. Inside were printed emails with another woman, Dr. Collins, a surgeon. The dates went back weeks. The lines were painfully familiar. This is temporary. She does not understand my artistic side. Once my project is funded. Same script. New audience. I started laughing, bright, ugly laughter that bounced off the bare walls, until it broke into sobs that left my chest aching. That night the apartment was mean and quiet. The refrigerator hummed too loud. The upstairs neighbor's footsteps sounded like they were inside my head. I tried to sleep but kept seeing Lily's face when she held the iPad, kept hearing Adam's voice sneer, "You were supposed to be my ticket out." Around 3 in the morning I got up, cleaned the kitchen, scrubbed the sink, wiped the counters, anything to keep my hands moving. I found one of Lily's hair ties under the couch, and sat on the rug holding it like it could somehow rewind time. The next day I called Brooke's mother to ask, again, if Lily was okay. She was kind in that careful way moms are when they are holding someone else's hurt. "She is fine here," she said. "She is doing her homework, she is eating, she is sleeping. Give her space." I thanked her and hung up feeling like I had borrowed someone else's daughter and lost my own. By noon I was at the clinic, finishing charts, avoiding eye contact. My tech, Hannah, placed a sticky note by my keyboard, "Drink water." I nodded. I did not drink. On my lunch break I walked behind the building to cry where nobody would see, then splashed my face with cold water and practiced a smile in my phone camera that did not look like I had been crying. When I got home that evening, the apartment felt even smaller. Adam's absence was not a relief, it was a hollow. I opened the box of emails again, reread the lines, then slid the papers into a trash bag and tied it tight like it might contain the shame. I took the bag to the dumpster, tossed it in, and listened to it land. It sounded final. It was not. Back upstairs, I started a text to Michael, "I am sorry." I deleted it. I tried typing to Lily, "Please let me see you." I deleted that too. I set the phone face down and just breathed. At some point the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, Lily was there. Ponytail, backpack, that same guarded look she had worn the day she left. My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. "Hi," she said, small. "I need to get some stuff." "Of course," I said, moving aside. "Do you want water? Something to eat?" I cannot stay." She cut in gently, not cruel. "Brooke's mom is waiting in the car." She went to her room and started pulling clothes from drawers, rolling them tight the way I taught her for trips. I stood in the doorway and watched the girl I raised pack like she was visiting a stranger's house. "Lily," I tried, my voice catching. "I know I ruined things. I know I hurt you. I swallowed. I love you." Her hands paused on a sweatshirt. She did not look up. "I know you say that," she said quietly. "But I do not know if you loved us more than you loved all of this." She gestured around, at the thin couch, the missing art, the life I had chased and caught like a spark that burned my palm. I leaned on the doorframe to stay upright. "I thought I was choosing happiness," I said. "It turns out I was choosing noise." She zipped the duffel. At the door she finally looked at me, and I saw Michael's steadiness in her eyes, steady, not cold. "Dad said he will take me to see Purdue next month," she said. "There is a program I like. He has been helping me study for the math test." Of course he had. Michael had always found a way to show up, even when I had not wanted to see it. "I am proud of you," I managed. "I am proud of how hard you work." She nodded once. "I will text you before the test," she said, and for a second her voice softened the way it used to when she was little. "Good night, Mom." "Good night, baby." The door closed. I pressed my forehead to the wood and stayed there until the hall went quiet. Later, I sat at the tiny kitchen table with a legal pad and wrote 2 lists. On the left, what I lost. On the right, what I still have. The left column filled fast: house, cars, savings, the clinic profits, Adam, my daughter's trust. The right column stayed mostly empty until I wrote, a job. 2 hands. A chance to do better. It did not feel like enough. It was what I had. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Coach Myers." Lily left her permission slip in her room. "Could you send a photo?" I walked to her desk, found the form under a sketch of a shopping center facade, the one Michael's firm was rumored to be designing on the edge of town, and took a picture. For a long moment I traced Lily's pencil lines with my eyes and wondered when I had stopped asking about the things she loved. I sent the photo and sat back down at the table. The sticky note Adam left still lay under the salt shaker. I slid it into a drawer and shut it like sealing a wound. I did not sleep much that night, but when morning came, I got up anyway. I packed a lunch for myself. I braided my hair the way Lily used to like it on me. I watered the one plant that had survived the move. Then I locked the door and went to work, because there are some holes you climb out of an inch at a time, and I had finally stopped digging. Not to move back, only to collect her clothes, books, and a few posters she still liked. Lily lives with Michael now, in a sleek condo just a block from her school. The kind with a doorman in uniform, a fitness center, a marble lobby that echoes when you walk across it. It is the kind of place I once fantasized about living in, yet now I can only enter as a visitor, not as family. She barely spoke while packing. Just the sound of drawers opening, zippers closing, hangers scraping. Then finally, she broke the silence. "Mom!" Her voice cracked like she was about to cry, but her eyes stayed cold. "Dad knew about Adam the whole time. He hired a private investigator." I froze in the doorway. "What?" "He had everything," she went on, her tone sharper with each word. "Photos. Recordings. Logs of your trips. He could have destroyed you in court, but he didn't. He just wanted out clean." The room spun. My mouth was dry. Then why didn't he fight? Lily looked at me with a disappointment that hurt worse than rage. "Because dragging you through the mud would have ruined you, and you're still my mom. He said the best revenge was letting you live with exactly what you thought you wanted. Her words hit me harder than any courtroom loss ever could. Then she lifted her 2 suitcases and walked out. I stood alone in the house that no longer felt like home, the walls suddenly cavernous, the air stale. When the door clicked shut, it felt like a coffin lid sealing. The unraveling. Not long after, I learned the truth about what Michael had been building in silence. While I was busy unraveling our life for the thrill of chaos, he was laying bricks towards something greater. His consulting firm had just secured a $40 million defense contract with the Department of Defense, one he had been quietly positioning for during all those boring business trips I used to mock. And it wasn't just his career. He had been reshaping himself. Early mornings spent training in jiu-jitsu, weekends networking at investor conferences, nights reading about aerospace innovations while I was sipping wine with Adam. While I was dismantling everything, Michael was constructing a fortress of discipline and growth. 8 months later, I hit rock bottom, and it came with a perfect, painful view of my ex-husband's new life. I was no longer the proud owner of my veterinary clinic. Michael had quietly bought out my 35% stake for fair market value, leaving me just enough to wipe out the credit card debt Adam and I had built up playing house. Now I work for another vet, Dr. Patel, who is kind enough but still the one signing my paycheck. I'm just another employee in scrubs, taking orders, instead of running the practice I once believed was mine. The science fair. Today was Lily's school's science fair. She won first place for her project, on aerospace propulsion, no less. Guess who helped her? Michael, of course. I stood at the back of the auditorium, half hidden, watching them celebrate. Michael was in a perfectly tailored suit that probably cost more than I make in a month. But what struck me most wasn't the fabric, or the fit, it was how alive he looked. Confident, powerful, sure of himself in a way I never appreciated before. On his arm was a woman I recognized from the news, Natasha Price. 31 years old. Georgetown law degree. Speaks 3 languages. A legislative director for the Senate Armed Services Committee. She wasn't clinging to him or performing possession. Instead, she bent down to Lily's level, laughing, asking questions about her project, pointing out details that made my daughter beam. They looked like a family. The family I'd burned to ashes. Michael spotted me as they were leaving and walked over. Natasha and Lily went ahead to get the car. Natasha, he said, politely acknowledging me with my full name, like I was a stranger at a formal event. I noticed up close that he wasn't just slimmer, he was stronger. His chest filled the suit, his stance grounded, his presence commanding. He looked like the man I'd married in college, only honed by time and success. The conversation I dreaded. Lily misses you, he said finally. His voice was steady, not accusatory, but something in his eyes told me he already knew the answer. She won't return my calls, I admitted, swallowing hard. Give her time, he said. She's processing a lot. Teenage years are hard enough without finding out her mother is a cheating whore who destroyed her family? I finished bitterly, my voice sharper than I intended. His face didn't flinch. No anger. No pity. Just calm. Without having her worldview shattered. He corrected. She idolized you. That's a hard fall for anyone, especially a teenager. The shame burned hot in my chest. Did you know? I asked suddenly, needing the truth like oxygen. When I asked for the divorce, did you already know everything? He was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. I knew about Adam 3 weeks after your first coffee with him. The air left my lungs. I knew about the hotels. The lunches. The nights you said you were at book club but were really at his apartment. I knew about the money you siphoned from our joint account to help him with rent. I had everything. My knees weakened, and I grabbed the back of a folding chair to steady myself. Why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you confront me? He exhaled slowly, the kind of measured breath of a man who has already made peace with his choices. What would have been the point? You'd already decided I wasn't enough. Fighting would have just meant months of ugly court battles that would scar Lily. So instead, I prepared. I protected what was mine. I documented what I needed. And then, I waited for you to make your choice. Reflection. Hearing those words cut deeper than any insult Adam had ever thrown. Because Michael wasn't lying. He hadn't been weak or broken or spineless. He had been patient. Strategic. While I'd been drunk on chaos, mocking him for his calmness, he was already outmaneuvering me, silently, methodically, brilliantly. And the worst part? He hadn't destroyed me in court, even though he could have. He'd chosen the punishment that cut sharper than any legal victory. He let me live with exactly what I thought I wanted: Adam, freedom, excitement, until it collapsed on me. Now, watching him walk back to the life he'd rebuilt, stronger, richer, loved by our daughter, I realized the truth. I hadn't beaten him. I had only beaten myself. Stories like this remind us that betrayal always carries a cost. Sometimes the price is everything you thought you wanted, and sometimes it's everything you can never get back. If this story struck you, hit like, share, and subscribe for more tales of love, loss, and lessons learned.